Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Important issues, as you know, your network, the Koch Network, has been trying to persuade the president to shift his views on trade and tariffs, so far without a whole lot of success. He's got trade battles going on with China, with Europe, Canada, Mexico. Is that a threat to the overall U.S. economy?
Absolutely. The economy is going really strong right now. The numbers just came out, 4.1%. I mean, that is tremendous, stronger than in years. And that's a testament to the work that's been done on tax reform and removing some of the regulatory barriers. And the tariffs and this trade war threatens to undermine that progress significantly. And this is a tax on the American people, after all. And, you know, even the policy that's put forward, it's hurting the very people that it was meant to help. Farmers now need a bailout. There's a $12 billion bailout that's being put forward. And it's really not a bailout for farmers as much as it's a bailout for bad policy. And at the end of the day, we were talking about putting these tariffs in place to hurt China for the bad actions that they've taken on trade. And who holds our debt? China. So we're now, you can't make this stuff up, Wolf.
The president's former chief political strategist, Steve Bannon, he replied yesterday telling Politico that officials at the Koch Network, and I'm quoting him now, need to shut up and get with the program. How do you respond to Steve Bannon?
I'm not going to get into the divisive nature and continuing in that course. We're focused on uniting people to tackle challenges and help people succeed. And so that's where our focus is going to be. So I'll leave that to Steve Bannon.
Let me one final question on the budget deficit. It's exploding right now, and I'll put some numbers up on the screen. In 2016, the budget deficit for that year, $587 billion. First year of the Trump administration went up to $666 billion. The Congressional Budget Office now suggesting it could be $1 trillion next year, less revenue coming in because there have been tax cuts, a lot more spending for military and other issues as well. How does the Koch Network feel about $1 trillion budget deficit coming up?
Well, I think that's awful. And the problem here is not the tax cut that Americans rightly deserved. That has stimulated the economy and created new growth. The problem is the $1.3 trillion package that Republicans signed into place. That is a lack of leadership.
Any Democrats yet joining your network for support? Have you got any names you'd like to mention?
Well, we have an open invitation. And you know what? Regardless of whether we agree on every issue or not, right, there are certainly going to be issues where we can find common interest, and we're going to aggressively pursue those areas of common interest so we can unite to build strong bipartisan coalitions and drive these policy changes so that we can make some progress. The problem is it's so divisive and factionalized at this point that even when you do find opportunities where there's agreement, it's hard to work with one another because those relationships have been destroyed. What we see is that we need to work toward a society of mutual benefit where people succeed by helping other people succeed, creating win-win situations for the American people.
It is Tuesday, The 31st of July of 2018, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Oh, yes, just a little bit of Hungarian hot paprika. Just a dash. Smidgen. Makes all the difference. Well, I just love how the Koch Network, they are actually doing Russian active measures. That is what Russian active measures is, right there, folks. Got a Koch Network flack on CNN with Wolf Blitzer as the straight man, of course, because you need one of those. Who's on first? So you got this flack from the Koch Network saying, oh yeah, everybody's got to work together. We're all in one big tent. Everybody is like one vision of a utopia that we can all be equal. And what? They fought against every aspect of that. What the hell are they doing? I have an idea. I do indeed. But what else has happened? Hey, what everybody says, what's up with Rudy? I've been saying what's up with Rudy since the beginning of Rudy. Even when he was supposed to be the stalwart of rooting out corruption. Yeah, rooting out corruption so that he could get a monopoly on it. Well, and he's always been a racist. Let's be clear about that. It occurs to me, Rudy's firm is one of these international firms that does represent brutal dictatorships all over the world, and uses their techniques of influence or whatnot to sway public opinion. Just they're I don't know, a strong arm PR firm. I don't know how, or a strong man PR firm. Maybe that's it. But it does occur to me that maybe Rudy's got a contract with somebody else over there in the east of Europe. I wonder. I really do, because what a spectacle! It's destroy the village to win the war. I don't understand. Well, I do understand this philosophy. Out of fear or abject impulse, sometimes flailing about and beating your chest like a mad gorilla will scare off the other gorillas. Okay, we'll back off. We'll let them vent. And if it doesn't happen quick enough, sometimes bashing about the forest and tearing down trees and destroying your favorite sleeping spot communicates like, wow, this gorilla is like crazy. And they run off. So I wonder if that has something to do with it. They're cornered right now. Rudy does, like I said, his firm does represent brutal dictatorships all over the world. Even those that, pretend that they are not. Like a petrol state, right up there, near the Arctic Circle. Well, it goes all the way down to the Black Sea, too. But listen, Caspian. Even there, it goes all the way to the Caspian. Okay, well, that's where we are. 3D guns. I don't know. 3D glasses, not guns. That's what I think. I'll work on that one. But the idea of 3D guns does kind of bother me. But it's bound to happen. I mean, if you're going to 3D anything, you can 3D that. So, I don't know. 3D me a bunch of Dremel tools. I'll take that. I mean, if a gun is merely a tool, give me a tool that will actually make sense, at least in my life. Alrighty, well, it's Tuesday, folks. Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. And I guess I should go ahead and let you know about what's going on in the rest of the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Just because we got a show here and we got to get it on. Well, a 2012 ruling by Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh made sure Trump was able to screw over his own casino workers. Well, of course, Trump doesn't pay his bills, he doesn't pay his contractors, he doesn't pay his employees, and even then when he does have employees, he makes sure that most of them are foreign and working at a quarter of what they should be making. Yeah. I guess Kavanaugh may have looked at that as one of those, it's just a contract. Yep. Hey, speaking of the Kochs, a Koch-backed study finds Medicare for all would save the U.S. trillions of dollars. Koch-backed study. Oops. I don't think the Koch brothers are going to like that. And Trump's tariffs on aluminum and steel will add a $350 million tax on your beer. Well, if you drink beer out of a can. After the break, we move to the chef's table where there will be a steep price to pay in the near future for white evangelicals who embrace Donald Trump. And British police were ordered to tell journalists the death of a Russian whistleblower was a non-issue. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you'll find to the rightish of the page the chat room link monitored by Kelly Lincoln, who, as another reminder, because we just have a day or so, is going to be in New Orleans. Actually, tomorrow night, she'll be in there. She'll be there, and she needs to eat. And if you could continue out there, if you haven't already, could you help, buy at least part of lunch, dinner, maybe even breakfast. And that would be grand because we don't want her to have low blood sugar. No one can go that long without eating. And thank you to those who have helped. It is a tremendous relief. And she's doing the good work for Resistance Radio. And if you happen to be in New Orleans, say hi, or she'll say hi to you. Yes, she will. She might even have a recording device, or at least a pen and pencil and a paper. Pen and paper and a pencil, maybe, just as a redundancy measure, just in case. To the leftish of the pages are the contribute donate buttons. We'll have those in effect in quite little amount of time, but in the meantime, if you would push any efforts over towards Kelly, that would be grand. Thank you for your generosity. You can follow Netroots Radio on Twitter at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. Thanks, Tom. And you can also check us out over on Facebook. I'm supposed to take care of that. Kelly helps me out, but Zuckerberg does what he wants to do. He does. He really does. And what else? Oh, yeah. Go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I post a diary with the show notes and links about 10 minutes before showtime at Daily Coz, and I'm there as Justice Putnam. You can follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West. Don't ask me why. It's at Cookbook West. And we are also over there at Facebook at West Coast Cookbook, so you can check us out there too. And last but not least, podcasts of the show can be found by way of TuneIn, Stitcher, Spreaker, iTunes, and wherever fine podcasts can be found. All right. Well, we've been through that before, but it's expected. Hey, let's get on with this story about Brett Kavanaugh. Yeah, he's a plant, isn't he? Situated just right. Almost like it was planned. I don't know. Well, this is Emily Crockett out of Share Blue Media who brings us this offering here. Trump is well known for screwing over working people, both the people who work for him directly and the people who voted for him because they believed his lies about bringing back jobs. Idiots. But that's their fault. So it's not surprising that Trump would pick a Supreme Court nominee, Brett Kavanaugh, who virulently opposes workers' rights. If I can get someone to sign a contract to work for nothing, isn't that the way America should be? Everybody free to agree to whatever they want. Yeah, you think it's an Onion article. I'm sorry, that's the way they are wired. All right. Well, what is surprising? It turns out that Kavanaugh directly helped Trump to screw over his own casino workers, Bloomberg reports. Kavanaugh, Bloomberg explains, was one of 3 Republican-appointed judges who ruled in 2012 to crush a perfectly legitimate unionization effort by employees of the Trump Plaza Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City, which just happens to be in New Jersey, if you didn't know. In 2007, Trump Plaza employees voted 324 to 149 to join the United Auto Workers, an arrangement that would have helped the employees collectively bargain for fairer wages and benefits. What? These workers really needed the support of a good union to help protect them against Trump's notorious abuses. After all, Trump has been accused of failing to pay hundreds of contractors and employees what they were owed, and now faces a new lawsuit for denying overtime pay and health benefits to his personal driver for 25 years. He seems so loyal. Now he's getting uppity. Trump Plaza tried to get the National Labor Relations Board, the federal agency in charge of enforcing labor law, to throw out the union election as invalid. The casino tried to argue that the vote had been tainted by a UAW media event that featured politicians who supported the union drive. Tainted. Well, the NLRB found that was nonsense. It's not illegal for lawmakers to support a union campaign. I mean, it's not illegal for them to not support a union campaign. See, this is why this guy's such an idiot. You know, he's used to getting his way. He doesn't believe in, well, he doesn't. He doesn't believe in a representative government. He doesn't believe in a vote. He doesn't even believe in a majority rule, just that you win. Okay. So, the NLRB found that was nonsense also. The NLRB ruled that was violating federal law by refusing to let UAW negotiate on behalf of Trump Plaza workers. I'm sorry. The NLRB ruled that Trump Plaza was violating that federal law. But then Trump Plaza appealed to the D.C. Circuit Court, where Kavanaugh served as an appeals judge. Kavanaugh ruled against Trump's workers and in favor of the casino. He threw out the NLRB's ruling and ordered the agency to reconsider the case. But the casino closed in 2014, and the case never got revisited. Remember that? The only guy to ever lose money on a casino. The only one. The union drive was crushed, Trump won, and his workers lost. Workers' right is just one of many issues in which Kavanaugh is likely to do Trump's bidding. Kavanaugh has indicated, for instance, that he doesn't believe a president can be criminally indicted while in office, which could have big implications for special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation. And Kavanaugh is also likely to fulfill Trump's promise of gutting Roe v. Wade. Trump's promise. I don't know. If he can get away with it, he will, because Trump is all bluster. Bloomberg's latest report on Kavanaugh is yet more evidence that Trump's Supreme Court nominee will rule in favor of Trump and against the interests of most Americans. Well, we all know that. Andy Baird of Think Progress brings us this next offering here at the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Oh, and I should mention the French 77s are available throughout the show, so please have one or two. No more than two, though. Trust me, unless you don't have anywhere to go. Okay, and you might even have someone who's an assistant. You may need an assistant who has not imbibed in the French 77 if you take more than two. Okay. Looks like the estimated cost of $32.6 trillion over 10 years is less than the U.S. would spend over the next 10 years under the current system. The estimated cost of $32.6 trillion over 10 years for what? Medicare for all. Who found that out? The Koch brothers. Now, it has also occurred to me that, Henry Ford actually was one of the people who pushed for Social Security and whatnot. Why? Because back in the day, he was expected to take care of his workers and house them and all that. If he could get the government to do it, well, then it's less on his bottom line. So I wondered, are the Koch's ideological stand much more important than making money? They do throw a lot of money at politics without any expectation of making money. So there is that. But they had contracted for this study, and it finds that it's going to cost less, trillions of dollars less, than the current Medicaid system we have the current Medicaid system. The Mercatus Center at George Mason University, a libertarian think tank backed by the Koch brothers, projected that the Medicare for All plan, championed by Bernie Sanders, would cost the government $32.6 trillion over 10 years. The highly critical report found that even doubling all federal, individual, and corporate income taxes would not cover the costs of Sanders' Medicare for All plan. But the study did conclude, however, that Medicare for All would result in significant savings for the government because of lower prescription drug costs, saving $846 billion over the next decade. Streamlined administrative costs under the plan would save another $1.6 trillion. When we talk about a Medicare for All system, it's important to discuss the costs in the context of what the U.S. already spends on health care. As of 2016, national health expenditures, which included federal spending, state Medicaid programs, and private employer health care spending, totaled $3 trillion per year. And that's according to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. That means that over the next decade, the U.S. is projected to spend more than $33 trillion plus inflation on healthcare services without any changes to our current healthcare system. Significantly more than Mercatus estimated $32.6 trillion. Sanders' proposed single-payer plan would be free at the point of service and would not include any cost sharing. That is, no co-pays or premiums. Under his plan, taxes would replace those often high costs which currently are shouldered by patients. Well, does somebody really want to pay for someone's new pool or a new bathroom? What was it that Tea Party guy Santelli ranted on the floor of some stock exchange? Do I have to pay for someone's new remodeled bathroom? Research from March of this year found that the present system has left 15.5% of adults between 19 and 64 without health insurance, while more than a quarter of lower income families are uninsured. Well, isn't that the way that it was, not the way that Medicaid was structured, but isn't that the effort that's been expended all these many decades is to really try to kick the least of these out on the street so maybe they might die and we can be done with it, and then costs would go down, don't you know? Finishing up here at the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays, is an article out of Share Blue Media by Oliver Willis. Trump's reckless choice to single-handedly launch an international trade war is about to make your beer more expensive. According to an analysis by the Beer Institute, Trump's decision to impose tariffs on steel and aluminum will increase the annual cost of beer production in the U.S. by $347.7 million per year. Those extra costs are very likely to be passed on to consumers, and beer producers accuse Trump of effectively imposing a new tax on beer. These tariffs on aluminum and steel, we estimate, amount to a $350 million tax on beer brewers in the U.S., Beer Institute president and CEO Jim McGreevey said on Monday on MSNBC. These added costs will be felt industry-wide, from the largest brewers to the smallest brewers, McGreevey said, and all of them will have to figure out a way to incorporate those added costs in their production. McGreevey added that the 2.2 million jobs supported by the beer industry are also under threat thanks to Trump's trade war. Trump's sudden decision to impose tariffs on steel and aluminum imports prompted top U.S. trading partners to respond in kind, increasing the cost of those materials. The added cost for materials amounts to a tax on the American businesses that depend on those materials. He has no idea. He doesn't understand the complexity of how any system works. Yep, he doesn't. In all likelihood, the beer industry will follow a pattern similar to soda companies like Coca-Cola, which announced recently that it would raise prices to compensate for the tariffs. Once again, Trump's bad decisions have left American consumers holding the bag. American taxpayers are also stuck financing Trump's ill-advised $12 billion bailout for farmers who have been caught in the trade war's crossfire, and Trump wouldn't be surprised that his trade war is hurting the economy. A secret internal White House study concluded that American business would in fact suffer from Trump's tariffs and the response to them. These conclusions are in stark contrast with Trump's political rhetoric. He has said that trade wars are good and easy to win, and when Americans have to reach deeper into their pockets to buy a six-pack, they will see firsthand just how wrong Trump was. Now, let's remind ourselves once again. An internal White House study concluded that he knew exactly what businesses and how they would suffer and what their response would be, almost as if it was on purpose. Who is ordering him to do this? Who wins a trade war? I wonder. You mean a country who incorporates the Arctic Circle and the northern part of the Caspian Sea? I wonder. All right, well, we better get on to our break. We really should. All right, it's Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. And when we come back, we will go through weather from around the world and finish with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Jason Goldman. Crows react really strongly to one of their own being dead, including gathering around their deceased comrades. Some experts believe that these so-called crow funerals are efforts to learn, perhaps so they can avoid the same fate. University of Washington researcher Kaylee Swift is one of those crow experts. When a film crew came to her campus to record these behaviors, Swift and her colleagues placed a dead crow on the grass, and they waited for the crows to show up and investigate. just as they had done hundreds of previous times.
The first bird, came in like they do, and I'm sort of bracing myself for what has become, what I'm expecting to be the typical response, which is that it alights in a tree and it alarm calls and then other birds come in. But instead what it does is it flies down to the ground and it kind of walks up to the crow. But then it goes into really typical crow pre-copulatory posturing, where basically they kind of drop their wings down and they stick their tails up and they strut. And it just struts on over to the dead crow and jumps on top and copulates with it.
Neither Swift nor her advisor had ever heard of this behavior, so they decided to determine just how common it is by conducting a series of experiments with wild crows in Seattle. They saw that most crows don't touch their dead. They observed physical contact roughly a quarter of the time, and sexual contact occurred less than 5% of the time. The finding is in the journal Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society B. There's a twist that may be instructive. The crow's sexual behaviors were often combined with aggressive ones, not something that usually happens during mating encounters. And this was most frequent early in the breeding season. The researchers therefore wonder if some extremely hormonal crows may be unable to suppress one set of behaviors while expressing the other.
Maybe these birds, because of these hormonal influences, are so incredibly territorial. They're so quick to take advantage of any opportunity for an extra pair copulation, which is something we know crows engage in. But the part about this that makes it so exciting is that we were actually able to quantify how frequent this behavior is. And that's completely brand new to science in any vertebrate animal.
Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Jason Goldman.
Welcome to 60-Second Civics from the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. In colonial America, where Christianity was already deeply established, the Great Awakening took place, a religious revival movement that swept the colonies from the 1730s to the 1760s. A second Great Awakening would take place in the 19th century. These movements helped spread the idea of universal moral human equality, including equality among social classes. By the eve of the American Revolution, universal human equality was a common American idea. It is little wonder that the Virginia Declaration of Rights, adopted on June 12, 1776, while Thomas Jefferson was working on his draft declaration, asserted that all men are by nature equally free and independent. That's all for today's podcast. The show's theme song is Complacent by Cheryl B. Englehart. You can find Cheryl online at cbemusic.com. 60-Second Civics, where civic education only takes a minute.
You can help stop the Trump agenda in its tracks. Make sure you're registered to vote. Go to rockthevote.org. And on November 6th, vote for Democrats up and down the ticket. This message, a public service from all the fine people of netrootsradio.com.
What's in a name? By definition, the name of a person, place, or thing is its personal designation, a distinct way of being known to others. Unless, of course, it's the opposite, a label meant to disguise who or what a person or thing really is. In other words, a fake name. Hiding one's true identity can be done for many legitimate reasons, but it's widely used these days by flim-flammers and corporate front groups. For example, Restaurant Workers of America is not made up of waiters, cooks, bartenders, etc. It's a front group for chain restaurant owners who oppose raising the sub-minimum wage of their actual workers. Such AstroTurf citizen groups often hide behind patriotic-sounding names like Americans for Prosperity to run massive campaigns of deceit to benefit the corporate sponsors at the expense of the public interest. And now, from out west comes a brand spanking new group, Cowboys for Liberty. What a positive moniker. Cowboys are seen as down-to-earth, straight shooters, and America is all about liberty. But wait, is this just a front for corporations wanting to grab our public lands? Au contraire, as the old cowhands say. It's an audacious, fun-loving network of hell-raising climate change activists who are out to expose, shame, and defeat the corporate-serving profiteers behind the climate denier industry. They chose the cowboy image both to symbolize the true West ethic of defending Mother Nature and as a spoof of the Orwellian perversion of language by dishonest corporate powers. This is Jim Hightower saying, but Cowboys for Liberty is more than a name. It's a public campaign to unveil the shameful, avaricious individuals who are behind climate change pollution, putting their personal wealth and political advancement above the well-being of all other earthlings. Join the campaign at www.whydeny.org.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you. The Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
6 weeks after Donald Trump declared in a tweet that North Korea was no longer a nuclear threat, new intelligence suggests North Korea is building new missiles in the same facility that produced the country's first intercontinental ballistic missiles capable of reaching the United States. Trump, who knows nothing about foreign affairs or diplomacy and still maintains his summit with Kim Jong-un was a success, now says he'll meet with Iran's president with no preconditions.
I'm wondering if you could tell us what you think Iran needs to do to reduce some of the tensions. And you've met with the leaders of North Korea and Russia. Are you prepared also, are you willing to meet with President Rouhani? And under what conditions? And have there been any preliminary discussions about something like that?
I'll meet with anybody. I believe in meeting. The Prime Minister said it better than anybody can say it. Speaking to other people, especially when you're talking about potentials of war and death and famine and lots of other things, you meet. There's nothing wrong with meeting. We met, as you know, with Chairman Kim, and you haven't had a missile fired off in 9 months. We got our prisoners back.
We got the remains of 55 soldiers killed during the Korean War out of a suspected 5,300 in North Korea.
I had a great meeting, in my opinion. Of course, the fake news didn't cover it that way, but I had a great meeting in terms of the future, in terms of safety and economic development and protecting Israel and protecting everybody. I thought it was a great meeting. Great meeting with NATO. I just explained NATO. Hundreds of billions of dollars more money will be paid into NATO, the coffers of NATO, and much already has.
The money isn't paid into the coffers of NATO. It's money each country spends on its own military.
So I believe in meeting. I would certainly meet with Iran if they wanted to meet. I don't know that they're ready yet. They're having a hard time right now. But I ended the Iran deal. It was a ridiculous deal. I do believe that they will probably end up wanting to meet. And I'm ready to meet anytime they want to. And I don't do that from strength or from weakness. I think it's an appropriate thing to do. If we could work something out that's meaningful, not the waste of paper that the other deal was, I would certainly be willing to meet.
Do you have preconditions for that meeting?
No preconditions, no. If they want to meet, I'll meet. Anytime they want. Anytime they want. It's good for the country, good for them, good for us, and good for the world. No preconditions. If they want to meet, I'll meet.
At Monday's presser with the Italian Prime Minister, Trump also reiterated that he'd be willing to shut down the government if Congress doesn't fund his border wall.
We need border security. Border security includes the wall, but it includes many other things. We have to end the lottery. We have to end the chain. The chain is like a disaster. You bring one person in and you end up with 32 people.
It's also how Melania's family got here.
We have to end these horrible catch and release principles where you catch somebody, you take their name and you release them. You don't even know who they are. And then they're supposed to come back to a court case where they want us to hire thousands of judges. The whole thing is ridiculous. And we have to change our laws. And we do that through Congress. So I would certainly be willing to close it down, to get it done. As you know, we are already approving things in various bills, including we're going to be taking care of the military. We always put the military and law enforcement very high. but I would be certainly willing to consider a shutdown if we don't get proper border security. Thank you.
The Treasury Department is looking at another $100 billion tax cut to benefit wealthy Americans. It would reduce capital gains taxes through a loophole that would not need approval from Congress. Jury selection begins Tuesday in the case against former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort, who faces bank and tax fraud charges brought by Robert Mueller, the special counsel investigating Russian interference in the 2016 election. Meanwhile, Trump's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, went on a TV blitz on Monday, claiming that Trump didn't do things that nobody accused him of doing.
The president's lawyer is now denying the president himself hacked into the DNC and the Clinton campaign, which is strange because no one has accused the president of hacking into the DNC or the Clinton campaign. The president's lawyer is now denying that the president himself met with a group of Russians at Trump Tower, which is strange because no one has accused the president of meeting with a group of Russians at Trump Tower. The president's lawyer is now denying that there was a meeting to talk strategy ahead of the Trump Tower meeting, which is strange because no one has mentioned anything about a strategy session ahead of the Trump Tower meeting. So what the heck is going on? The president's lawyer is arguing that colluding with Russia isn't a crime, which is strange because the president has been telling us for over a year now that there was not any collusion. The president's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, is also arguing that there isn't a single stitch of evidence of collusion, which is strange because that's just not true. And it's even less true now than it's ever been. Guys, you got to wonder if Rudy Giuliani's bizarre string of claims today is a reaction to a string of rapid-fire developments, all of which raise legitimate questions about collusion.
And that's a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener supported, and I can't do it without your help. Find out more at NicoleSandler.com/donate.
From UN headquarters in New York, I'm Luke Vargas with your World in 2 minutes. Voters in Zimbabwe cast their ballots for the country's next president on Monday. It's the first election in Zimbabwe since 1980 to not feature Robert Mugabe, the 94-year-old former president who remained in office until being booted out in a de facto coup last year. Mugabe may be gone, but the heavy-handed party infrastructure he built remains, and is now working to elect Mugabe's 75-year-old successor, Emerson Mnangagwa. His main opponent offers a different vision for the country. At just 40 years old, Nelson Chamisa suffered violence at the hands of Mugabe's security forces over a decade ago. American election observers are among those on the ground to witness Monday's vote after being denied access to do so during the Mugabe era. The U.S. condemned the government of Nicaragua on Monday for continuing a violent crackdown on opposition demonstrators that's left at least 350 people dead. Demonstrators first took to the streets in April to protest pension reforms, but were emboldened after being violently suppressed by state authorities. In a statement, the White House declared Nicaragua's president and vice president, quote, ultimately responsible for the pro-government parapolice that have brutalized their own people. In addition to backing calls for new elections, the U.S. has pledged to hit more Nicaraguan government officials with sanctions if violence continues. And Cambodia has become a one-party state after weekend elections saw its ruling party capture every one of 125 parliamentary seats, and Prime Minister Hun Sen cement his place as Asia's longest-serving ruler. That overwhelming victory was a lot easier to come by when serious opposition, like the country's National Rescue Party, was banned last year and its leader arrested. The U.S. called the weekend vote in Cambodia neither free nor fair and said it constituted the biggest setback for the country since the end of its war with Vietnam in 1991. Luke Vargas, The United Nations.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. That's right. Hey, before I begin with the weather, even though it is somewhat weather related, the forest fires in the region have been throwing up a lot of smoke, and it was relatively okay this morning, and then suddenly some smelly smoke wafted in, and it has hit me just during our break. A lot worse than it was before in the top of the show when I was in the Bistro Cafe. So I hope you'll excuse me at times. I may have to turn away quickly. I'll wash my hands afterwards, don't worry. But if I happen to sneeze, I'll try to take it out of the podcast part, okay? I'm sorry. All right, well, weather from around the world begins along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 61 degrees. We're going to be going up to a high of 98, maybe 100, 101 where I'm at. Tonight we'll have a low in the mid-60s. Currently, the winds are out of the southwest about 1 mile per hour. Will be shifting as they usually do later on, a couple of hours from now. Out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then shifting once again tonight at the same clip, but out of the north-northwest. Then tomorrow we're expected to be in the mid-90s, but it could be the upper 90s. Cooling off a little bit, that would be nice. There's been a forecast for rain next week. But they always say that. It's like going in front of, the digital signage that savings and loans and banks have. Don't trust that temperature. They want to get you inside the doors. Well, okay. Dry conditions will continue, whatever that means. Grass pollen is now moderate. The air quality is moderate at 72 parts per million. Not really healthy for those who have breathing issues. We do have an active air quality alert because that air quality index could go up into the unhealthy and dangerous levels, which it did yesterday. Later on, we were up to 172 parts per million. So 100 parts per million more than what we're currently at. The daytime UV index is at 8, which is very high. A little less than what we're usually getting, but that's because visibility is down to 7 miles because of the smoke. High pressure still dominates in the region, and it is holding steady at 29.94 inches. Humidity is at 65%. It's been fairly muggy, quite humid. And I didn't know if it was just the oppressiveness of the smoke, but it didn't feel good. Not at all. All right. Well, weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted. These purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 76 and sunny. Paris is 82 and sunny. Rome is 94 degrees and sunny with a heat advisory that could impact critical infrastructure. Kiev is 86 and partly cloudy. Kabul is 83 and fair. Don't have a wedding party today. The drones are flying. Hong Kong is 81 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 80 and clear. Sydney, Australia is 57 degrees and clear. San Francisco, California is 51 and mostly cloudy with an air quality alert because of the smoke down there. And New York, New York is 77 degrees Fahrenheit and fair in the Big Apple. I've said that before, but that's how it is in weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Marcotte brings us this first offering here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. It is Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Okay. Oh, once again, the French 77s are available for your perusal or imbibing. Last week, Michael Cohen released what has been said to be the first of many tapes he has of private conversations with his former client, Donald Trump. Oh, and I failed to mention that, of course, Amanda Marcotte writes for Salon. All right. Continuing on. But what is on this tape is already interesting enough. Despite the furious spinning from Trump apologists on cable news, the tape clearly shows that Trump, who has denied knowledge of paying off mistresses in the past, clearly remembers a previous discussion about this and volunteers, "So what do we got to do to pay for this, $150?" The casual tone is remarkable, suggesting that such payoffs are routine in Trump's world. All of this creates yet another problem for a segment of Trump's fiercest defenders, white evangelical Christian leaders. For decades, these leaders have been trying to impose a strict sexual morality on the rest of America, one that forbids premarital sex and homosexuality. That's because they're hiding their own. You know that. They're repressed individuals. Though not just moral scolding, but government action, including things such as abstinence until marriage programs in high school and restrictions on contraception and abortion meant to punish women for defying a moral code to which most Americans don't subscribe. Which reminds me, Jeff Sessions went out and said that nuns are forced to take contraceptives. Obviously, Sessions has never gone to a Catholic school, or he would have been, how shall I put it, corrected sternly. Yes, he would have been. Okay, that's why he's a heretic. All right? He hasn't been corrected. And now such leaders find themselves in the position of defending a thrice married chronic adulterer who has flaunted his habit of using his wealth to get porn models and actresses into bed. Well, if you're going to get that rich, wouldn't you want to be a libertine? The result of this gross sexual hypocrisy will likely be twofold. To be clear, in the short term, this will help Trump by shoring up his support among the Republican base. But in the long run, this will do real damage to evangelical Christianity and to the Republican Party that depends on its support, as the pews continue to empty out of people who are increasingly disgusted with the two-faced nature of the religion. In many cases, as with Family Research Council head Tony Perkins, the narrative on offer is that Trump might have been naughty in the past, but at some point prior to his run for president, he was born again and started to walk the straight and narrow. This Cohen conversation, recorded just a few weeks before the election, makes clear that narrative is false. And to add insult to injury, Cohen and Trump were also recorded discussing how they can use some of the pastors they had gathered around Trump to bolster his credibility with evangelicals. All right, well. Of course, Franklin Graham is playing the pious cast the first stone card, declaiming on Twitter that everyone should realize that every word that is spoken or thought is recorded by God, and you will be judged by truth and righteousness, by God himself. Yeah, reap what you sow, Franklin. Reap what you sow. Don't be whining when you're burning in the brimstone and fires of hell that you created for yourself. This double standard, where straight men can do whatever they like and everyone else must face a stern crackdown, is sin, has long been baked into the religious rights ideology. Increasingly, younger members of the churches are starting to get sick of the unfairness and are walking out the door. The word hypocrisy comes to mind, but that doesn't really do the situation justice. After all, most of the behavior of the religious right is to punish premarital sex, non-procreative sex, same-sex relations, if it's consensual and not just harmless but life-affirming, but mostly just a matter of consenting adults having fun and seeking positive connections. They don't like that. But Trump's adulteries and general objectification of women, however, are not harmless. He's wrecked at least 2 marriages and likely 3, though I don't know. I'm thinking that Melania is going to be direct messaging on Twitter to some handlers over there in Slovenia. Can I come home now? Can you give me another assignment? I'm ready for another assignment. In the short term, the defenses of Trump and the Christian right will do what they're meant to do, keep the believers punching for the ballot for Republicans out of loyalty to their leaders and their tribe. But in the long run, these moral contradictions will continue to alienate more people, especially younger people. The religious right base will rally around their shameless pastors and the president with whom they've made a devil's bargain, at least for now. But there will be a steep price to pay for that bargain in the not-too-distant future.
Danser maintenant sous l'été, les pieds nus dans le sable. Danser maintenant et jeter vos ennuis dans les vagues qui dansent.
Finishing up in the chef's table here at the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is a harrowing story raw story by Noor al-Sabai. Newly released confidential documents have revealed that British police were ordered to tell inquiring journalists that a Russian whistleblower's suspicious death was a non-issue. Documents released by the coroner overseeing the investigation into the death of Alexander Parapolichny show that although U.S. intelligence had high confidence the whistleblower was killed by the Kremlin, the officer leading the investigation was to downplay the Russian's death when interviewed about it. Parapolichny, a financier, left Russia in 2009 and later handed documents over to Swiss prosecutors, alleging the Kremlin was involved in a fraud scheme soon after. In 2012, he collapsed while jogging, and his death, along with lawyer Sergei Magnitsky, exposed potential Russian assassinations in the UK. Minutes from a meeting about the financier's death reveal that Olivia Pinckney, then the Assistant Chief Constable of Surrey, instructed Detective Superintendent Ian Pollard to coordinate with the police's media office and make it a non-issue. Parapolichny's death was classified as unexplained and under investigation in the cache of documents released by the coroner. Following a request from BuzzFeed, and the initial autopsy on him was inconclusive. Despite her instructions, the report noted Pinckney also criticized Surrey police for missing multiple opportunities to fully investigate whether Parapolichny was murdered. Well, the intrigue continues. Seems like another convenient death while jogging, along with all the other convenient ones, like the heart attacks and the polonium poisonings, the convenient murders, all of it. Well, we are at the end of our broadcast period for the day, but we'll visit with you tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. It'll be another big day. You know it. Stay tuned to Netroots Radio for the rest of the day for the breaking news as it happens, and we'll visit with you tomorrow. In West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie d'un novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin l'âge tendre, nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.